What's up and welcome to Idle Insights, a show where each week I, Treavor Bettis, get to talk to interesting people about idle champions and Dungeons and Dragons. And with me this week again is the amazing B. Dave Walters.
It is I.
See, I've been
Yep.
saying for a while I need to get a cheer sound effect to play when I introduce people, but you just brought it with you, so I appreciate
That's
that.
true. I did. I do it with practicals. That is the dozens and dozens of my fans. Yeah.
Quick bit of housekeeping. You may notice the overlay looks different. That's because today's Lauren's day off, so Lauren is in chat, but Lauren is not producing. So this is what I've got going on. This is really showing you what Lauren brings to the show, which is it looking great.
Among many things.
Among many things.
Mhm.
We are
It just
live.
lo-
Right. Oh.
Lauren's Day Off is like a great name for like a animated film or something, or
That
at
would
least a
be.
short.
Yeah, there would be
It
many
involves
hijinks.
knitted hats and silly walks. Because the new Orkira skin's available now if you haven't already gotten it. Idle Champions.
There you go.
Mhm.
We are live, so you can put your questions in for B Dave with question : and then your question, and our awesome mod Martin will grab it and put in a little text doc for me. We will be doing a giveaway halfway through the show, like normal, and I think that's.
Is it a hug? Because I want a hug.
I mean, I will give you a hug.
That is true.
You don't gotta do a giveaway for that. I'll just give you a hug.
Trevor gives top flight hugs because he's much bigger than you think he is. You know I'm freaky ginormous. He looks all cuddly and quaint in his like Ghostbuster sweater here, but he's a statuesque man. And you're like, okay, this is.
I'm gonna be about 99.9% confident in saying I've never been described like that before.
There you go. It's my gift to you, buddy. It's my gift to you. Yeah, there you go. I said it on the internet. So
Yeah, it's got to be
definitely
true. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
right.
I've got proof.
Yeah, there's a recording. Mhm.
Pixar didn't happen. I've got the recording. Yeah. So we're here today to wrap up this Isle Champions presents Hunger of the Far Realm set of interviews that we've been doing, and Hunger of the Far Realm has wrapped up. So what better time to talk to the DM himself, B. Dave Walters, about it?
That now that it is not possible for me to spoil anything. Yeah, right. Joke's on you. I can always spoil the next one.
Woo!
Yeah. Mhm.
So okay, I've got a list of questions here that don't all necessarily pertain to the Idle Champions presents, but I kind of wanted to take this as like the DMing episode, right? And so I want to start this off with, why do you like DMing?
Well, why do you like breathing and stuff? So it's funny because whenever people would ask me, which do you like more, playing or DMing? I used to say that I like them both equally. And in my heart, I think that's true, except I realize something. When given the choice to play or DM, I choose DMing 100% of the time. I have never declined DMing ever when given the choice. And I think that's because I like telling stories, like that's kind of the through line in all the stuff that I do. And so even though it's a collaborative art and we're all telling the story together, I sort of enjoy being able to set the scenes and then give the spotlight to other people so they get a chance to shine. I think that's what I like most about it.
Okay. I do agree with you, the whole being offered, like, do you want to DM or do you want to play? I also am usually in that boat of like, I'm going to offer to GM pretty much every time unless there's some circumstance to it. But yeah, the one of the things that I've said is that, like, I want to become a fan of my players' characters. Like, even though I'm DMing and I'm setting up the scene and everything, it's like I'm getting to watch my favorite weekly show. And just getting to sit back and watch them do something is much better than having to be the one to do that.
I find as a dungeon master or storyteller, the times where you're having to say the least are the times that it's going the best. You know?
Yes.
And that's I will tell you little inside baseball here. Because I'm gonna share a few BTS things today because that's why I'm here. They can't stop me, but if the stream suddenly cuts out, it's because I said too much.
Dylan just hops into the Zoom call and ends
just like, yeah, right. Be right back. It's the goblins chewing on cords is the image that comes up. So we plan these very carefully. We plan these for months in advance, and we have adventures that that are written out, so I know what's going to happen in the episode, and I always deviate significantly because you gotta play it as it lay. And more than once, like, they'd be interacting with each other and the cast is being brilliant, and I'm getting pinged like, you still got to do this and this and this and this. I'm like, I know I can't do it, but they're being cool right now. Can't let this happen. So yeah, she's just like, I can't interrupt this
Right?
thing. Yeah, right.
Okay, that I mean, that actually is a question that I had later on that does pertain to Hunger of the Firm. One of the things that came up literally in every episode of Idle Insights when I was talking to the cast was how quickly that cast just clicked.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to watch, and I'm sure as a DM, that is, I mean, that's one of the things you hope for the most when you get a group together. But
yeah.
So when you do have that group that just clicks, what is the best thing for a DM to do in that situation? Is it to just sit back, or
Let it happen?
Yeah.
Well, I'd give you two different set of circumstances. If it's a home game, you're not beholden to a episode count or season breaks or whatever. Just let it be what it is. Like, if you have an entire session of them talking in the tavern, but they're all into it and enjoying it, let it happen and let it go as far as it goes. Even if you are beholden to seasons and episode length and whatnot, for the most part, I would still err on the side of that, because your plan is always secondary to the experience of the people at the table. It's like I always tell people, rules exist to facilitate the narrative, not the other way around. Your plan, your story exists to facilitate their experience, not the other way around. So if they're going to have that time, let them have that time. And, again, for these Idle Champion stories, something I set out to do in particular is help the audience fall in love with these characters, because pretty much all of them exist somewhere else for the most part. I mean, you can follow them on those adventures. So I'm like, yes, you should add this character to your formation, of course, but I want you to give a damn about Virgil and Kent and Walnut and Strix and Evelyn. And the best way to do that is to give them opportunities to say and do things that will make you give a damn about Virgil and Kent and Walnut and Strix and Evelyn. I'll be vague about the end just in case, there's somebody who hasn't finished it yet. But I let them know that they were going to be faced with a very costly decision in the final episode. Got consent from everyone that I was like, this, there's, because what I told them, again, a little more inside baseball, is no other dungeon master is in any way beholden to honor the story I'm telling and we're telling together, But I try to do these Idle Champions presents in such a way that it could fit into these characters' lives. That this is real events that they could have experienced in the greater context of, the character's existence. And I said, going into this, there could be some permanent repercussions pending what you do. I say permanent because obviously the next table you're at, if they're just like, you know what I mean? Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna get mad about that, but I try to honor that, to deposit Virgil and Kent back in the Rivals of Waterdeep in some semblance of the form in which they left, that suddenly you're not going to come back with like rocket legs or something, and then be Tanya responsible for dealing with that. So
I do remember seeing Tanya in the first episode in chat being like, I'm figuring out how to work this in.
I've talked to her behind the scenes too. I was like, all right, check this out. This is mostly what's going to happen. So, to try and, I mean, I had it easy with Black Dice Society when, Nahara and it was Tatiana and Desmond at the time, were in our side story because one, it was my story, but two, that's the nature of the miss. We went off into the woods, some crap happened, and we came back. Here we are,
I really did love the episode of Black Dice Society after after you finish Court of the Raven Queen, of doing that like one moment of like, okay, you went into the mist and then you come back out like a half hour later, but it's been a much longer for you. That was
Yeah.
that. You're just like, oh, I got weapons now.
Yeah. I'm like, where'd you get that spear? You're like, I saw your god. She says hi. You know? Yeah. That's definitely. I at least try to honor that because I think I've shared this with the good people of Idle Insights before. Is when I was playing freely and I knew that he was coming into Idle Champions and it was unannounced, but we were in the process of doing his design. Was in the game he lost his arm and then got his clockwork arm, and I immediately was like, hey, so don't freak out. He looks completely different now, and I don't know if he's gonna get his real arm back, and I don't know what we should do. And it was a very quick fix. Well, I say quick fix. I don't know how quick it was, but they were very gracious, upgraded it, gave him his clockwork arm. So much so that a time came up eventually that I could have gotten his arm back, and I was like, no. He robot arm. You know what I mean?
That's so good.
Yeah, that's the thing we have now. So much so, at Gen Con when we played in the Rivals live game. No. It was Mark Meir, the Black Pits, when we were in the Black Pits.
Oh, okay.
Freely got a ring of regeneration, and I was about to put it on, and I was like, what? No, wait, hang on. I don't even know what would happen. Would the second arm just come out under it? Would I just have two arms? I don't.
Three-armed Freely sounds like a fun time. Yeah, definitely some antics.
That'll be me as a gunslinger. I'll be three-armed Freely, just like yeah. Right.
I love that. So, okay, let's go back to the DMing side for a moment. I mean, I kind of wanted to ask this very baseline question of when you are either planning on being a DM or you're hired to be a DM, where do you start?
This is the shameless plug portion of the show. I just put out a video course about this, 14-day DM. It's tagged at the top of my Twitter at bdavewalters, or it's undisputedacademy.com. So I talk at length about this. But to answer the specific question, it just depends. All things being equal, I advise against heavy planning because no plan survives contact with the enemy.
Someone literally put that in the chat earlier.
Yeah, in roughly half of what you think is going to happen. For me, I carefully plan out the very first thing I'm going to say. If the whatever the descriptive monologue that's going to bring you into the world when you come through the looking glass, I know exactly what I'm going to say. Then I have a rough idea where we need to be by the half and roughly where we want to finish. It also depends on the context. Like when I do these charity games, which I'm blessed to do, and we'll do things like deck of many things draws. They can add monsters. You know, it's gonna go off the rails almost immediately.
Yeah.
And the sooner it goes off the rails, the better, because that means people are donating and affecting it. You know what I mean? So I a lot of times I have no idea. I just know the inciting incident. Like you're here and there is a village that is on fire, and then here come the donations and the draws and the wild magic, and you're like, now
and now Tiamat's here. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we're doing, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, so obviously a one shot is, you know, in many ways the most work because you have the least amount of time to get things across. But I would say I'm always looking for ways to let the characters shine, to make sure that everybody's got a moment, that the sneak is going to get to sneak, the talky one's going to get to talk, the fighty one's going to get to fight, you know, the skill monkey is going to get to skill monkey, like a moment where everybody gets to be a rock star. I think as long as you got that built into it, everything else falls into place.
I love that piece of advice, because one of the things that will like drive me up the wall is, you know, it's like, oh, well, I've got someone who, you know, is super good at stealth, so I just have to put, like, alarms everywhere. And it's like, or you can just let them do their thing. Like, that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah, you could let them do that. Yeah. And then when you only have the alarm on the big bad's place, because the big bad is on to them. You know what I mean? and they step on that one nightingale tile, like, wait, what is this? And then roll initiative. Yeah.
So oh, hang on. My brain went absolutely blank there. You know this because you're on writing about dragon shit with me, and it happens all the time.
Well, I have a thing I want to share
Okay,
while
yeah.
your brain's rebooting. The origin of the names of the familiars.
Oh.
Which, I was trying to be clever, but sometimes in my cleverness, I'm so clever that people never figure out what I was trying to get across. Honestly, in this, I was so clever that I don't even remember all of exactly what it was, but I can give you the idea, which was Evelyn's baby astral dreadnought Treppy. That was just short for the word trepidation, because astral dreadnoughts are terrible. Baby lunar Virgil's baby lunar dragon Tycho. That's from the largest crater on the moon, the Tycho crater. It's a lunar dragon. Photos, Kent's baby solar dragon, was short for the photosphere from the sun because it's a solar dragon. Bala, the baby Kindori that was Walnut's familiar, was short from the scientific name of the blue whale. Is where the Bala part comes from. Kuba, Strix's space swine, the same thing. It was short for the largest species of pig ever from like the Paleolithic era. The Latin name for it is I just took Kuba out of it. Yeah, that's where it came from.
I love that stuff. Did Wordstuck help you with that one?
Wordstuck helps me with everything. Although those were all English words, so no, in this one case. And then this is the God's honest truth. Poe and Cilia, the Chewinga and the space guppy. The Cilia is still part of the name of the largest species of goldfish. But for the life of me, I cannot remember why I named Popo. I had a reason. I'm like,
I can, for some reason though, like Poe going with the Chewinga just sounds correct. It's just how
Thank
it is.
you.
Yeah.
It's, again, me 6 months ago was like, meh. And now I'm like, yeah.
What I was gonna ask was, you have all these characters from different shows and different properties and whatnot, and I know you've done this throughout several of them, and so I wanted to ask, do you find it easy or difficult to tie in their, like, any character's backstory into the plot? Like, I know on Black Dice side, I mean, that was heavily in there. All of their plots were so deeply engrossed in that. Do you, is there like any like planning you're doing this, or does it come naturally?
I mean, relative to the ICPs or in general?
Just, I mean, one or the other. Your pick.
Well, the advantage of the ICPs is, for the most part, I know these people. Like, a lot of times I'm familiar with the characters, but I almost always know the humans. So I kind of know what buttons to push type thing, or at least what balls to tee up for them. Going into this last one, I asked all of them, things that they wanted to see happen, moments they wanted to have, things that they might be secretly afraid of. I also specifically for Virgil and Kent, talk to Tanya about, like, if there was anything you wanted me to sprinkle in, or a thing to foreshadow or like mess with. In the previous ones, you can always ask like a lot of open-ended questions. Like, if you're not sure, like in Court of the Raven Queen or something, where if you're like, the Raven Queen is talking to you, she very easily can come to you in a dream. You can just say, you wake up in one of your happiest memories. You tell me what it looks like. And then, they tell you, and then you're just yes-anding, in other stuff, especially longer form stuff, I'm always trying to find ways to bring out backstory, because that increases the depths and makes these people more three-dimensional. Because by now we all seen a couple of tiefling warlocks.
You could say that.
Yeah, one or two.
One or two.
So you're like, what's gonna make this one special? And you're just like, well, this is why they're special. So, because an article of faith that you will hear me repeat at length, 14-day DM, available now, undisputedacademy.com, is that the dungeon master's job is to elicit an emotional reaction. That's what you're there to do. If it's nodding, yes, shaking your head, no. If it's laughter, if it's crying, if it's anger, it's just if the human being is feeling something, you're doing your job.
Yeah.
And whatever you got to do to set up those moments, it's less, you know, I'm gonna move 5 squares with my 30 feet movement and flank this many, you know, like it's more than that.
I've only had a player cry at my table once. They actually did it twice in the same session, and the first time I was like, "Oh my god, I got like emotion. Oh no, I feel terrible because I made them cry."
God's honest truth. I measure my success and how quickly I can make someone cry. I truly measure how effective this is. The fastest I can get tears out of somebody, not because their tears give me strength personally, although they do. It is because that is one of the clearest external examples of you've touched something. Because they can be happy tears, but you're like, the human being is feeling something.
Yeah.
Good. You know? Yeah.
I like that. That is a good way to think about it. I still did feel bad for making my sister-in-law cry, but it was a good session.
It depends on why. If you were just like, you need to learn the barbarian. What's wrong with you? It's just like, those are different tears.
No, it was Curse of Strahd. It was the last session. Stuff went down.
As it is wont to do in Curse of Strahd. Yeah.
Well, what the other question that I had, I mean, you essentially answered in that though, with talking about like the Raven Queen with, you're in your happiest memory. What does it look like? Because we call D&D collaborative storytelling so often, and I think that is the perfect example of it. Is giving that stage to the player to describe the thing. It's not just you describing everything. You let them do it and then play off of it.
Yeah, well, it's you're pulling double duty, because not only are you getting them more involved in enriching their experience, you're also making it easier for you.
Oh yeah.
You don't have to have all the answers. It's like, you tell me, and you can do this anytime. You walk into a room and it's terrible. You tell me what it looks like. You know, you just set them up enough. You're not just like, walk into a room. What's it look like? You're like, I don't know. Is it a ball? Is there a chandelier? You know, like if you were like, you walk into a bathhouse and clearly a fight has happened. You tell me what it looks like. You know what I mean? Like, you sort of set them up, and then they're like, well, this. And then you're like, okay, well, now it's this type thing. You know what I mean? If they're like, I don't know why that scene from Eastern Promises just flashed very clearly in my mind there with the whole Vigo. But if you're like, there's a bathhouse and there's been a fight, and they tell me it's like, the tiles are shattered. There's a smear of blood that leads around the corner, and man is laying on his side, breathing heavily. And then I would immediately be like, what would you like to do? And they're like, oh, I'm going to go check on him. Well, he rolls over and he's clutching the knife still in his hand, not the blade that he just held onto it. And he just looks at you and he says, it was my brother, and dies. You know what I mean? Now you're doing the thing. You know what I mean? Again, you're just yes-anding. And I will just make a point about yes-anding, because, you know, as an improv technique, it's you want to avoid saying no as much as possible, because it shuts down the action. You know, you're going to take what they say and then add to it. In the context of storytelling, though, on occasion, you do have to say no, because it's a game that has rules, especially with newer players. A lot of times want to do things that the rules simply don't allow for. So in that case, I always try and be like, no, but.
Yes,
you know,
that's the one.
I will ask them. You know, they'll say things like, I want to swing off the chandelier and flip and shoot an arrow type thing. And it's like, well, what is it that you want to accomplish? I want to shoot him and I want to look flashy. Great. You know what I mean? If it's just flavor, I'm like, fine, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you do. Roll it, you know? But if it's something that the game doesn't allow for, if it's like, I want to throw a handful of coins in his face to blind him. And I'm like, well, what is your intent? Your intent is to distract. Okay.
Yeah.
Make a deception check. Like, great. If flavor wise, yeah, you threw some coins in his face. Practically, you have now distracted him. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Try and find a way to still get them to be able to do the things, at least try the things that they want to do.
Yeah. One of the things that I've said for years now is like, just describe movement looking cool. Like, it doesn't matter if you don't have to make them roll to slide down the banister. Just let them look cool. Yeah, so
Doesn't hurt anything.
if they're sliding down the banister to like escape a group of 40 guards, make it a little more difficult, but
Yeah. Let Legolas surf on the shield shooting orcs. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do that?
Right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
It's almost like it's a game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the for the collaborative storytelling though, the yes and no but really is like a huge help when it comes to having that tool in your DM toolbox, because there's just so many things have come out of my games of just doing even no but, like the whole plot points have come off of doing that.
Yeah. Well, also, I've been playing this game for over 30 years now, since dinosaurs rule the earth. And back in the day, the game truly was adversarial. It was the player versus the dungeon master. The dungeon master was actively trying to kill you, and you were actively trying to survive. It was PvP. It really was. And it has evolved in a very good way to the collaborative way that it is now. But a lot of times I find there's some OGs that haven't made that evolution, or don't know how to cross that gap to a story that we're telling together. And quite frankly, not every player knows that either. There's players that there's like, I'm going to sit here and you feed it to me, and it's like, no, we're doing this together.
Yeah.
But I find once, and of course be mindful of it on occasion. If there's a very, very shy person, for instance, don't necessarily just ambush them with like, "Bruh,"
Yeah.
or at least if you do and you see them kind of hesitate, just sort of reassure them. You will hear me say in this Idle Champions, you'll hear me say all the time things like, don't worry about it, a lot's happening.
Yeah.
Because people are like, oh, I don't, I'm like, hey, don't worry about it. A lot's happening. You take your time. The worst thing I'll do is I'll be like, you figure that out. I'm gonna do this other thing, and then I'm gonna come back to you, and you tell me.
Yeah.
It's like don't worry about it.
The new player one of just like, don't ambush them or anything. Like, that new player experience is one of those magical ones, especially with yes and no but, because like the character that I've played in a bunch of live games now, Garlock, he exists because my sister in her first game of D&D rolled a natural 20 to like persuade a goblin, and he just wanted to be friends with her then. And it was, I was like, well, I'm not normally I would have said no because it's a goblin and it doesn't matter, you roll a 20, it's a skill check, but it's my sister, it's her first game. Of course I'm gonna be like, yeah, no, the goblin wants to be your friend.
Yeah. Well, again, one, not only what did that cost you in the minute, what did it mean to her?
Yeah.
And then what has it paid off since? I ran this exact same thing. One of my favorite NPCs of all time was actually a demon, a straight up demon. She's a succubus, in fact.
Dragons demon.
A real demon. She's a succubus. And one of the characters, so this character, his whole thing was he was secretly evil, but the other characters didn't know. I knew. We discussed it, but he was actually terrible. But and what he was doing was casting charm on people without them knowing it. And in that version we were playing, charm lasted a really long time, days. Like 1 day per level type thing. So effectively, you've got indefinitely. You sort of have people. So he was charming everybody, and he was even charming like bosses and stuff, and I'd have them make the save, and if they failed the charm monster, it's like, well, they're charmed too. And they had two of them. They had a succubus and also another a half demon, which was a thing in that version. And I had them come along, but what they didn't realize is I was doing two things. The succubus was also charming people because she could, it will, because she's like, I'm helping him do the thing he wants to do, so she's charming people, and the charm on her broke before the charm on everybody else, so they had kind of had this come to Jesus moment with him. But it was funny because the time that she was just with the group, she just became this full-fledged, vibrant character
Mm-hmm.
that ended up. She was just kind of this like very sort of spoiled pouty girl. I played her as because again, she's a succubus. She's
Yeah.
used to getting what she wants. Like she literally preys on weakness. In the other person, the half demon was kind of a fundamentalist, and I had him see time and again these heroes do things like, they called and their gods answered.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, really came to
Yeah.
respect them. Like, you guys are kind of incredible. And they actually became friends over the course of the campaign and like real parts of the team.
Yeah.
But again, that wouldn't have happened if I would have just been like, no, or legendary resistance, or they make the save, and then you have another fight. It's the same as that story I always tell. That same campaign, one of my friends, we started level 1, and he's like, my concept is a dragon slayer, and I'm like, level 1, you ain't slaying no dragons, but okay, that was his whole thing. Fairly early on, I gave him an arrow of slingshot, which in that edition, it was custom to a certain kind of creature. So he had an arrow of slingshot for dragons, and it had a relatively low save, but if the target failed to save, it died.
Mm-hmm.
And so gave him this. Literally was Bard's Black Arrow is basically how I flavored it. A year later, there's an encounter that I'd planned with a dragon where dragon was going to attack the village, and I had it all mapped out. That I was like, round 1, the dragon's going to fly by and use his breath weapon. And then round 2, it's going to land and fight for a minute. And then round 3 is I mean, I had it all the beats. I start describing everything. We roll initiative. He wins. He says, I'm gonna use my arrow slaying shot. I'm like, what? Literally like a year of human time had passed. And he's like, I got my arrow slaying shot. And I was like, okay. You know what I mean? I'm like, this dragon's got a chonky con bonus. Like, it's fine. He rolls to shoot natural 20. I roll to save 1. This actually happens. And I have this moment because I have this multi-hour epic encounter. And I could have easily been like, oh, it makes the save.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, nope, you shoot it out of the sky. Round 1, minute 1, attack 1. He's and drops it. And of course, they're all, wah! And still talk about this years later. Yeah. Even though it completely ruined my encounter, it was worth it for him and all of them to have the experience. That's what matters.
I think the 3rd month I was DMing ever, my players eviscerated the big bad for this portion of a story after he took 1 step off a horse. And they talked about that for years, and it was perfect, and it was their hero moment, and it was great.
Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna hop over to questions from chat because we've actually gotten quite a bit of them in the half hour that we've been talking here. You can still put your question colon and then your question Mars, who is hopping in for right now. We'll grab it and we're gonna do the giveaway here in a moment to give them some time to get it up. Yeah, they're getting it set up right now, so just give us a little bit and we'll get going.
This is me making stalling noises.
Oh, actually, it looks like it's getting set up right now. I'm still gonna give you like another minute, Mars. But yeah, so we're gonna go through these questions. Still put them in there. Mars will grab them. Oh, there. Okay, it's up. We love B Dave is the code. So go ahead and do it.
It's the best code ever.
Yeah, it is. Cause B Dave the best.
Yeah, no you.
And while you all fill the chat with We Love B Dave, we're gonna go to a question from Lurking Writer. Question: how much content was prepared for Hunger of the Far Realm that the players didn't get to see? And would the Idle Champions Presents Adventures ever be released for home use? Parentheses, if that's even possible.
They saw it all except for some of the splits, you know, where you
Mhm.
could have gone left or right type thing.
Yeah.
Um, they pretty much saw it all. Um, that was no small thing. Real talk, I thought they had been published, and I found out literally Monday of this week they hadn't. I was like, really? Like, I legit thought this entire time every single one of
Well,
these had been released.
I know that we
Mm,
have. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna look
yeah.
right now live on the show.
I do know Hunger the Far Realms has not been
Yeah,
released.
Hunger
I
of the Far Realm
thought
hasn't, but I
the others have.
believe. Oh, here we go. Yeah, if you actually go to the Codename Entertainment website under media, there is encounters, and you can get The Unfair Seas, A Fool's Errand, Mists of Ravenloft. I don't think is that's a different thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a different thing.
but then there's also the Trials of Mount Tiamat for adventure for entering characters 18th till 20th level. So
Well, there you go.
yeah, so you can get 3 of them on
Hooray.
there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we things have been busy. We haven't gotten to do the
It's
other ones. I don't know if they
yeah.
will happen.
Yep, that's science point to know, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, except for some of the decision splits, they pretty much saw it all. Yeah.
hmm That's I mean, I think that's pretty cool. Like getting to
Mhm.
learn more about how actual plays work. And really getting to know that because working with you for Black Dice Society, it's absolutely fascinating for me to see how those work and because at first I was like, oh wait, they know what's gonna happen. And I'm like, oh wait, no, that's good because then they can like respond to it in character and they can have the stuff.
Well, they don't know as much as you think.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm not
What
saying
I
like
yeah
everything, but just having like
right.
an idea of it.
Well, like for Black Dice Society, I would do player briefings
Mm-hmm.
where it was, but I kept it fairly general, where it was like, this week is going to be fairly laid back. Next week's going to be a meat grinder. So if there's scenes you want to have with each other, you should do it this week,
Yeah.
you know, or do go towards the woods, don't go towards the mountains type thing.
Yeah.
For this, except for the heads up about there was 2 things I for sure let them know in advance when the costume reveals were the skins,
Mm-hmm.
because they had to describe what they look like, so it's like be ready to do that, and the costly possibly fatal choice in the last one.
Mm-hmm.
Besides that, they went in relatively blind
Mm-hmm.
to these.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think I made it
Mhm.
sound like it was everything, but yeah, it's
Mhm.
but enough. They know enough to do that because I did love that in Black Dice Society, where it's like, hey, if you want to have these character moments, have them today. Don't have them
Yep,
next week. I think that's a great way of doing it, and it helps with pacing. Pacing is
it
great.
does. Yeah. Well, or one thing that I would say to them, this is because I was about to say I did this during the Black Dice Society, but I did it in this one too, where I was like, you're going to have 3 fights today,
Mm-hmm.
so you know, plan your expenditures of resources accordingly.
Yeah.
You know, I'd even say sometimes things like you're gonna have 2 small fights and a big fight, or I would say things like you're going to have multiple encounters today. Um, Combat is not necessarily your only option. I would say things
Mm.
like that. I mean, for me, I almost always there's a non-combat option because I'm very much of the opinion that intelligent creatures should behave intelligently,
Yes.
and you know, you almost anything can be negotiated with. Um, but some things can't, and you can't talk your way out of everything, but you know, it's probably worth trying at least, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, their terms of negotiations might be like, we'll only eat 2 of your brains, and you're like, well,
well, that's still not great.
don't know that we can sign on for that, so guess we gotta roll initiative. Yeah, so
The next question is going to be from Luxanom. Question: we talked about the face of Lathander. In Mexico, we have Luis Miguel that is called the Sun. But what about Elune? I think Celine Dion. But what about you? So essentially, like the other. So yeah, Lathander. I think we talked about this on Champions of Lore at one point. that Lathander looked like Luis Miguel, who in Mexico is called the Sun, but then having the moon goddess essentially be Celine Dion.
Tilda Swinton.
Tilda. Ooh, I like that one a lot.
Tilda Swinton.
Yeah,
Yep.
I agree with this full-heartedly.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy. Okay, let's go to Knivrip. I'm gonna go with the Knivravip. I'm gonna go with that. Question:
Phenomena.
Can you give us some tips about how to accomplish Yorvin's achievement? This one's a game question. Save this one for Mars' Guiding Hand tomorrow morning. I'm not any help with getting achievements because I don't usually notice when they happen. Apologies. So Mars will
Always
be able to
a
help
surprise. You're like, what?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we'll go to Cassius335. Hey Cassius. What would the Spelljammer and or Far Realm costumes for Garlock look like? Well, that's not a question for B-Dave. I'll answer that one another time.
No, please. Yeah. I tell you what, you tell what it'll be for Garlock, I tell you what it'll be for Freely.
Ooh.
Because it was two. There was basically Flash Gordon Space Pirate.
Oh.
And then Far Realm Twisted. It was the two. So give it to me here for Garlock.
Well, see, I love the Flash Gordon one for Freely. That's great. I think the Far Realm one, you know, like when you'd go to Disneyland in the 90s and they'd have those little light up ones for like Fantasia or whatever. It's all blue and stars and everything. That would be the whole aesthetic. Just like blues with a bunch of just stars all over the place. Looks very Disney-ified. And the Far Realm version, oh my gosh, I don't even know. I mean, I'd probably go very Lovecraftian on it. There'd just be tentacles everywhere.
Just pointing down tentacles.
Yeah.
I think for Freely, for his space skin, because eventually he found out that Bahamut was his father.
Yeah.
Thanks, Todd. I would probably lean very hard into like a lunar dragon aesthetic. Like maybe solar dragon, like space dragon, because solar dragons don't have wings separated from their arms.
Yeah.
Their wings go out to their arms, so I probably would have like the almost like the flying squirrel. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
like the wings would be like webbing under him, and he'd be all like solar and sparkly.
Just a little space flying squirrel.
Yeah, and then for the Far Realms. He probably would be 3-arm Freely, but it'd be all messed up. Like, I mean, like the robot arm is all crinkled and then the other arm coming out at like a weird angle.
Or did you ever see that movie Virus? The one where like all the tech started like taking over people, like the arm just starts going.
I'm like Superman 2. Yeah.
Right. Superman 2.
Yeah. In like huge, like fluffy, like Sonic the Hedgehog hair that was all ratty. Yeah.
Cassius did say that they forgot to put Freely in there. They're bad. It's all good. We got there.
Okay.
It was a good question.
Friend of the show. Friend of the show.
Emo just says Havilar recap. Probably not. as much as the two of us love those, probably not.
Yeah. Kind of helps when she's there for things. Yeah.
Lurking Rider comes back. Would you ever want to be a player in a future ICP? Though you were in Black Pits. If so, who would you pick as your DM if anyone was possible / available? And what kind of adventure would you want it to be?
I mean, again, issuing the disclaimer that when given the choice, I always prefer to run it. Everybody's wonderful. Mark was wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that it's like to pick any one person is to innately have a sneak diss towards someone else. I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? So whoever. In the type of adventure is I've played Freely so long. He's done it all, man. Like he's literally been everywhere.
Freely finds out that he's actually adopted and not Bahamut's son.
Well, that's actually probably for the best there. You know, that Auntie Tiamat, that's complicated. I think if like a planescape thing, but like more like Mount Celestia, more like out there in the heavens, you know, like Arcadia or something. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah,
I
probably.
learned about all that stuff from y'all on Champions of Lore, so hey.
You see, hey, you're like, I know those words.
I
Yeah.
know that place. They got cool stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. We'll do gelatinous Rubik's Cube. Again, I just love that one every time. It makes me
great name.
question how it would work.
Well.
How much was pre-planned, if any, in episodes? Some of it seemed to fit together as well as it seemed almost scripted. Also, Trevor, great job yesterday. Oh, well, thank you. So, like, what was there, besides like the layout of the session, was anything pre-planned to happen?
No, like almost all of it.
Well, I mean,
you know,
obviously the votes have a thing with it where it's like that is something that is fixed and has to happen.
You know, I said almost all of it, but actually maybe more like half, because nothing with the familiars is in the adventure. So anytime the familiars were on screen, that was new and original. Nothing with their interpersonal dynamics, you know, so that was all new and original. Anytime the gods showed up, that was all new and original. Every time Hadar came and talked to them, that was all new and original. So I mean, Hadar's a god too. The vision of Warlock coming early, because that Warlock otherwise doesn't show up till right at the very end. The whole thing, the vision of Sire, seeing what happened at Sire, everything Warlock said, honestly, was all new and original. So it's almost like an easier way to explain it to you is like, I've got a basket of ingredients that I know I must use.
Yep.
And then we get there and I cook the meal however I can cook it. You know?
I like that.
Over the
I could say you're a very good cook.
It's sometimes it was hard with the votes, man. And one of the things that you noticed that we didn't do this time that was always a problem every other time was a headache, were environmental hazards.
Yep.
Because it was impossible to plan for it. They could get there, everybody could roll spectacularly, and something that I thought was going to take 40 minutes took 5. Or everybody rolls poorly, like that avalanche. In the second one where they went through that cave with them. No, this is when the Trials of Mount Tiamat. Todd's group went through the cave
death water
with the mushrooms. The death water
mushrooms, yeah.
Though the death water was a headache, but there were these mushrooms that were supposed to put them to sleep. They all rolled above 20, and it was like, oh, well, I got a lot of time to fill now. And then right after that, Todd put the bag of holding in the bag of holding, and then there was that whole detour of them seeing the gods. That was all on the fly.
That's one of my favorite moments from any of these.
Oh yeah, when I was like, he did the thing. We gotta go to break when I figure out what's gonna happen.
That was why. It was because you said that. I very relatable content.
I was dead serious. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen, but something. So break time. Then in Raven Queen, that avalanche that nearly killed them all. And then there was a black ice thing in the episode when Orcus actually attacks the Raven Queen in the Fortress of Memory starts falling apart. There was this black ice environmental hazard, and it's just I could just never get it there. There was no good time, and then it was like literally all hell's breaking loose. Also, there's black ice. You know what I mean? So like,
by the way, let me just put this little last thing on top of your chaos pile.
It's also slippery. Yeah. So I didn't want that at all for this one. So that's why I wasn't there.
I love it. Well, we're actually getting towards the end of our episode here. We do have some more questions, but
I'll speed ask them.
Well, okay, let's do this.
Yep.
Jay McCunn question: as someone who very much loves and misses Black Dice Society, could you see yourself doing another project of that scale sometime in the near future?
Stay tuned. That's all I have to say about that.
I love that answer. Actually, a lot of these are Black Dice Society.
Give them to me. I want them.
Star Chase 43 question: have you thought about Black Dice Society 2? I love BDS, and I loved BDS, and I'm hopeful the answer is yes.
Stay tuned. Hey, I will say I specifically tied that story off in such a way that could be it, or we could come back to it. I intentionally left it modular.
I still just love so much that Mark had the last lines of the show be Beard Quest. That it's like it's no spoilers whatsoever if you haven't seen it, but it's just I love that that's what it is.
Yep. Yep.
What good?
No, I was agreeing with you.
Lexanom, question, where can I find that wonderful and beautiful deck of many things that you use in your one-shots?
I don't even know. I mean, it's never far away. See it? It's right here.
Let me see the back of it. I think they've seen it on Amazon.
I think it literally is just from Amazon. If you just Google Deck of Many Things, I think it's just on there.
It is a really good
deck.
It
is not from Deck of Many brand. Like, it predates Deck of Many brand. Yeah.
Evil.
You see how quick on the draw it was with that thing? I'm like, pow, this whole thing. Yeah.
Evil Emperor Sir, question, Champions of Lore, can we have some more sirs, please? Oh, you know, it is a complicated thing. We'll see what happens.
Listen to Writing About Dragons, our writing podcast. It's the three of us pontificating there openly.
It's genuine. It's Champions of Lore with less D&D. I won't say non.
Slightly fewer D&D references.
Slightly fewer.
Yeah.
Last one, we're gonna go to Vaxum question. Does your family play D&D with you?
My kids played in we did a stream for D&D Beyond, Roll in the Family, the Slumbering Forest, and we did a Christmas special last year too. So their very first stream ever had like huge numbers. I was like, you guys do not know how lucky you have it to like
the first one I actually sent to my one of my sister-in-laws whose my nephews were getting into D&D and she didn't get it. I went, watch this with them, and she was like, oh, I get it.
Hey. Yep.
All right, well, we gotta start wrapping things up so we can get ready for the next show. B-Dave,
look at you being all responsible.
Look at that. Where can people find you and awesome things you're working on?
Where can you follow me? I don't know. I'm B-Dave Walters, on the tweetagrams. Even if Twitter disintegrates, I'm B-Dave Walters everywhere, up to and including Hive. Again, check out Undisputed Academy, 14-day DM, 14-day player. Tell you everything I know about how to make the most of your time at the table, up to and including going pro. Pre-orders are out for 14-day writer, telling you how to cut at least 5 years off your process there. Everything else is all NDA-ified, and I can't really talk about.
Stay tuned for anything that B-Dave's got coming up, because there's always something exciting. I can tell you that for sure.
There's definitely a bunch of charity games in December. I think they're announced. It just says, again, follow me on Twitter especially. I'll post when I'm doing things.
100%. But B-Dave, thank you so much for taking time to talk with me today. Thank you for being an amazing Idle Champions Presents DM and continuing this awesome series that we've got going. I cannot wait to see what happens next. But yeah, that is going to do it for this week's episode. So I gotta get the button ready because I don't have Lord. This is what happens when Lord's out here. It's not smooth outro.
It's true. It's true. What?
All right. That's gonna do it for this week's episode. So until next time, take care of yourself.